Man, what's good too, man? It's your boy Mickal. That's back here with another video. In part 4 of the documentary. Let's get back into it. Let's go.
11. The 2008 murder of Hottie, allegedly by D-Thang, had been the catalyst for these back-to-back killings in 2011, resulting in the deaths of Baldy, D-Thang, Lil Steve, and Jizzle. 600 members seemingly had their revenge in the murder of Tutu, but this was only the beginning of a deadly war that would get more deadly and complicated as time went on. And with the murder of T Streets from 051, now members from 600 have to look out for numerous gangs from different neighborhoods. And going into 2012, it would seem to be that the biggest threat would actually come from their newest ops, the gang set 051 Young Money, who over the course of 2012 would become infamous for both their violence in the streets and their brutality in drill music too. 2011 had been a violent year for 600 and their enemies. After losing numerous prominent members, Baldy, D-Thang and Lil Steve, the crew would be in a perpetual state of mourning. Unfortunately, moving into 2012, the violence would continue, and the killings 600 members had committed against their various enemies surrounding them would eventually see a response. Just 3 months after the murder of T Streets and Tutu, on the 2nd of February 2012, which would also happen to be T Streets' birthday, according to a police report shared on Reddit, 600 affiliate Shaq had been attending a party that night. After the party, as he was heading home with a girl, a lone gunman would surprise them in an alleyway. Police would reportedly be notified about a shooting on the 5900 block of South Calumet Avenue, 59th Street, marking the border between the territories of 600 and MOB. And there, the police would find 19-year-old Shaq, who according to the newspapers had already passed away from multiple gunshot wounds, including one to the head. However, the official police report states that Shaq was only hit once in the upper left of his back. But regardless of the specifics, Shaq would ultimately pass away from the shooting, and 600 members would be left mourning. While Shaq's murder would officially go unsolved, 051 would seemingly take responsibility for the hit. Little over a month after.
Do y'all think he was set up, or it was just like come on now, bro? He's with a girl. Like, do you think that was really like a setup or nah? Now let me know down below. Let me know.
After Shaq's death, 051 member Boom would release a music video for his song, I'm In It, and the video begins with a clip of 051 members taunting their ops saying they're BDK, with 051 Kiddo aiming his diss directly at 600, saying, 600, we dropping them boys.
Drillers, freedom gas, BDK, baby, no 06 photo. Drop money, but can't come out the gate though, man. Right. Out here faking like gangsters and shit. Real Young Money, no. We're CDK.
But there was one man from 051 in particular who would talk about Shaq religiously on social media, and that man was infamous 051 member Melly, who implied that Shaq had been killed while peeing outside of the party, even going as far as to say that he heard his last words and claiming direct responsibility for the murder. In the years following Shaq's death, Melly would constantly diss Shaq on Twitter and give detailed descriptions about where and how he died, tweeting that his ops are DMing him about Shaq, telling his ops to go and ask the woman what happened when he caught Shaq using the bathroom, and Melly even went as far as to vaguely confess to the murder in direct replies to other 600 members replying to his tweets. It's also suspected that 051 Kiddo may have been closely involved in the murder of Shaq too, as he would also be seen disrespecting his death and taunting 600 members about the incident, tweeting that he would kill Shaq, then forget all about it. Mocking him for getting caught without a gun, Shaq was saying, die young money, until he died himself. Melly would even post a video to social media of him explaining to a little girl how he had done the killing.
You know how I play out here. You don't come with that money, shorty. Come up and end up missing. You talking, you don't know who I am?
Stop playing with her.
You know who I am?
I know my daddy.
You scared of the dark?
No.
I'm one of them type of guys that be in the dark waiting for you when you gotta go pee at night. And I just get you, and you don't never come back to your parents again.
No, you're not going.
You hear me? Then your TT ain't gonna be able to save you. Your daddy, he gonna be crying somewhere like, man, she don't got nothing to do with me.
This is honestly one of the most twisted and disturbing things I've ever seen in a Chicago drill story, and it just goes to show you how messed up of a guy 051 Melly must have been. But despite all of the self-incrimination, Melly would never be charged for the killing of Shaq, and Reddit sleuths would later uncover that at the time of Shaq's
That's insane, y'all. That is.
murder, Melly was in fact living in 600's territory, something that Melly would confirm in a 2012 Twitter post. Ultimately, 051 Melly would go on to become one of Chicago's most prolific killers in the drill scene, with speculation that he may well have personally been responsible for as many as 8 or 9 murders, beginning with Shaq, with all of these supposed killings earning Melly the chilling nickname the Gravedigger of Chirac. But more on that later, as after the murder of Shaq by 051 Melly, 600 members would be looking to exact revenge, which would ultimately come around 4 months later, when 600 would catch prominent 051 members committing one of the most infamous murders of the entire war. According to the police reports, on the 22nd of June 2012, at around 8:40 p.m, a 14-year-old 051 member, known in the streets as Fathead, real name Antonio Davis, was walking on the 7000 block of South Union Avenue in the Englewood neighborhood with his female cousin. According to the cousin, a silver minivan would slowly drive past the two while the driver looked at Fathead and his cousin very closely. The witness also noted that the passenger had his face covered. The van then took a turn while Fathead and his cousin continued walking. A moment later, one of those passengers of the car would appear on foot, approaching the pair with his hands in his pocket. The man would then pull a silver handgun from his pocket and shoot Fathead before standing over him and shooting around 7 more times. The shooter would then flee, getting back into the van and escaping the scene. Fathead would succumb to his gunshot wounds and pass away, and this particular Friday evening was incredibly violent, even by Chicago standards, with another 13 people actually getting wounded by gunfire. But the murder of Fathead, just 4 months after the murder of Shaq, appeared to be a targeted revenge killing related directly to this feud. And following the murder, 600 members would begin dissing Fathead.
This is sad, bro. You got people that are 14, 13 dying in the streets behind this gang war stuff. There's no guidance. There's no like people to tell them what's wrong and lead them in the right direction in life, bro. It's just sad, though.
Constantly on social media and implying their involvement throughout 2012 and 2013. C-Day would even put Fathead's name in his Twitter bio and reply to somebody who was upset about this that he saw something they didn't, as well as asking his followers if they would like to get a Fathead special with Zeke Fries, referring to another dead Young Money member, Zico, who was considered to be the first casualty of the war between 051 Young Money and THF 46, raging between these rival sets around Washington Park. But the craziest part about C-Day dissing Fathead so brazenly was that only a few weeks before that murder, C-Day had seemingly already been investigated in relation to another murder, perhaps that of Tutu at the end of 2011. Other members would also continue to taunt and disrespect Young Money on social media, such as 600 member Face, who was filmed visiting a chicken spot in Young Money's hood and asking for a Fathead sandwich.
What you want? What you want? That face? You want that? Oh yeah, face sandwiches, guys. Oh damn. Hey, what's this? The fattest one. No, you said y'all ain't got no tutu.
Inky D would up the ante by heavily implying that D-Rose and C-Day were responsible for killing Fathead, tweeting that D-Rose and C-Day put 8 in his face. Police reports would later reveal that authorities actually believed that 600 members C-Day and S-Dot were both involved in the murder, and they were eventually taken into custody and interrogated, together with 2 Lamron 300 members, one of them known as Lamron OJ, real name Marvin Riley, referred to in the police report by his nickname, Boo Man. The report shows how C-Day's fingerprints and phone were found in the van that the killers were allegedly driving. In fact, it was this phone that would originally begin to tie C-Day to the murder in the summer of 2012. As many drill fans know, leaving his phone at the scene of crimes would later become somewhat of a hallmark of C-Day during his alleged hits, with this ultimately being his downfall. But interestingly, not long after C-Day was first interrogated about the murder, the police would receive information from a female that was arrested for a retail theft. The female would relate to the police a Facebook message that she received from a person who would talk about Fathead, claiming that her friends had allegedly killed him. The message would claim that Fathead was killed for no reason, suggesting they killed him because he was lacking on the wrong street. Later in 2012, the police would also hear from a witness who had recognized the driver.
I mean, but if he's 051, I mean, the rivals, right? So, I mean, he's not killed for no reason. And this is just the game life. You see your ops, and I mean, but it is what it is. It's just sad that we got to sit here and we're killing our own people just because they're from that block.
Of the van as S-Dot after seeing his music video for the song 600 Boy. S-Dot would first deny knowing either C-Day or OJ and would claim he didn't personally know Fathead, but he did know that he was dead. However, he would later admit to knowing C-Day but not OJ. The case against C-Day, on the other hand, would further move forward as OJ from Lamron, who was also allegedly involved in the hit, told police that he heard C-Day was involved. However, as the police know, OJ had inadvertently seen C-Day also being interrogated, and only after this he would tell detectives that he heard from somebody that C-Day was the shooter after hearing C-Day was in custody. However, based on the height of the shooter identified by one of the witnesses and another third-party witness saying that OJ had bragged about doing the murder, the police thought that it was OJ who was likely the shooter. But in the end, none of the witnesses could positively identify the shooter, and none of the suspects would fully agree to cooperate against anyone else, and thus the case ultimately remained unsolved. But nevertheless, after rumors of OJ making a statement against C-Day became public years later, after the paperwork was released, he was ridiculed by fans and other Lamron members alike. For example, in Lil Durk's song David Ruffin, he references a friend describing a witness, with many fans suspecting that these lyrics may have been actually aimed at OJ. Chubbs from Lamron also called OJ disloyal, and in response to these allegations, OJ responded on Instagram with several posts alleging his loyalty to his set and claiming to still be solid. The controversy has also not stopped OJ from repping Lamron, and he's still seemingly associated with many of the members and claims Lamron 300 in his IG bio. But when it comes to 600, besides the social media antics, the members would seemingly stay relatively low-key in the streets for the rest of 2012, perhaps because they knew the authorities were looking at them closely. However, unfortunately for for 600, their ops were not staying low-key, as they were looking to avenge the murder of Fathead, and ultimately they would get their chance by the end of 2012. According to 600 members like Tay600, around 2011, a young man by the name of Trey Henry, aka Trix, would begin to hang out with 600 members in their area. He was a relatively new face in their hood, and one of the first sightings of Trix can actually be seen in the music video for the song Man Down by Booker, C-Day and Rondo that was published in November 2011. As a new member, Trix would have to earn the respect of the others to be part of the group, but unlike Lil Steve, who became almost immediately respected despite his short time in 600, Trix would have a harder time fitting in as he was more quiet and often behaved in a way that others might find strange.
But Trix really never spoke for himself, you feel me? Like, he ain't gonna like never really spoke for himself. He was actually how he was in person. He was very quiet, you know. He was like, you know, you like a little weird, you know. He was weird, quiet, you know, just like how it was back in our day. Like, it wasn't too many like Trix walking around, for like, I ain't even gonna lie, for like he used to bring attention to himself from us just because we thought, like, why the f do you be acting how you act, bro? Like, we in the hood. Like, I just, it's like, I'm just like, damn, bro, you, okay. What's to you? You know, like, what's to you, folks? Like, what is you on type? Like, why is you so damn, like, eccentric, folks? Like, he was just different. Like, I ain't gonna lie, like.
So because he was weird or quiet, that makes him weird because he was quiet. I mean, if he's trying to fit in, I mean,
this used to be tweeting about Pop-Tarts, like, bro, we getting shot at, it's dying, you on the net, we on this, damn, before they kill one of the guys, he on that. I wonder if they're gonna come out with a new Pop-Tart. Ooh, Snickerdoodle Pop-Tart. he man, vote. That man be on that thinking about new Pop-Tart ideas, fool. Like, they should just drizzle Pop-Tart. They should come out, like, I ain't gonna lie. If he would have been alive for them new Pop-Tart bites, he would have been on the Twitter tweeting about them on phone.
Later, Trix would get a car, which was not common amongst other members, and according to Tay, was a bad sign, as he knew that others would now try and take advantage of Trix.
And this really got stuff with Trix a lot, though. I ain't gonna lie, because like when that really happened, folks, like when he got the traffic, it was really crazy. When you got that traffic, the users from the block, they really used folks then, for I ain't even gonna lie.
Indeed, C-Day would seemingly begin to hang out with Trix at this point, often using him as a driver when trying to catch 600's enemies in the streets. Unfortunately, this may
they were just using him. So they were just using him. That's fucked up.
They really used folks then, for I ain't even gonna lie.
Indeed, C-Day would seemingly begin to hang out with Trix at this point, often using him as a driver when trying to catch 600's enemies in the streets. Unfortunately, this may have ended up being Trix's downfall, as the enemies would undoubtedly begin to take note of his car whilst he and C-Day were sliding in their neighborhoods. And then, on the morning of November 1st, 2012, only about a year after Trix had seemingly joined the group, he would be found shot to death in that very car. And even though C-Day had been talking to Trix on Twitter, seemingly on friendly terms only days before his death, right after Trix's death, he would seemingly deny that he had even known him, and would then even claim that Trix wasn't even part of 600, calling him an innocent bystander. Later, C-Day would repeatedly dish Trix on Twitter, saying that he didn't care about him dying, despite being in the car with him just a day before his death. C-Day's motivation for denying Trix would get clearer in a tweet from the following year, where he claimed that the ops would get no points for killing him, because killing him was like killing a random druggie. Now this goes to show you just how harsh and treacherous the streets of Chicago can really be, because clearly Trix had love for his 600 brothers. Only a few months before his death, Trix had tweeted, "Free my savage C-Day," clearly looking up to him, and he was often seen wearing custom clothing with 600 written on it. Trix would even credit C-Day with initiating him into 600 and would show support for C-Day when he was in prison. However, some of the other members seemed to also be indifferent or disrespectful about Trix's death and repeated C-Day's claims that he was not a real member of 600. However, it wasn't the whole set who turned their back and denied Trix. Others like 600 Breezy and Tay600 himself would seem genuinely sad about his death, and it's alleged that 051 members Freaky and Kiddo may well have been responsible for the murder of Trix. In the weeks leading up to the murder, Kiddo had actually tweeted offering a cash.
That's so sad, bro. That is so sad, bro. Even though probably he was a good kid, man. He's probably a good kid, man. see they saying that dissing him when he literally was just in the car with him a day before trying to catch. So this sounds like some of the people in the group didn't really care about him that he died, and then some people in the group actually like care about him. But that's just sad, dog. That's just sad. Like, what happened if he was alive right now? He knew that damn niggas didn't really fuck with him like that. That's just sad, bro. RP Trickster, bro.
Bounty for anybody who could give him the
That's
location
sad,
of 600
RP.
members. And less than 48 hours before his death, Trix was seen reposting tweets that were taunting 051 Kiddo. And to further add suspicion that Kiddo was involved, around this time, his Twitter handle was changed to @TrixForDeadBDK. And then, shortly after the killing, 051 Kiddo was then seen dissing Trix and mocking his death, making the Black Disciple Killer hand sign cracking the trays in front of a box of cereal named Trix. Regardless of who specifically killed Trix, it's clear from a Twitter dispute between 051 Melly and Manny 600 that 051 claimed responsibility for this murder. Ultimately, 600 had many enemies in the neighborhood, and they'd be causing pain to 600 in both the streets as well as in drill music, which was becoming an increasingly important part of the Chicago gang scene. This is undoubtedly partly due to the national and even global breakthrough of drill music, which made many of the 600 members focus more on music than the streets. On the 4th of November 2012, prominent 600 member LA Capone would try his hand at music, releasing his first music video for the track Work, a song which shows LA's talent for rap with his confident delivery and immaculate flows, something he would continue honing into 2013. However, 600 weren't the only people making music, and over time, their various ops would also be making songs and dragging 600 members in their lyrics. In late November, Dusky the Man from MOB released his diss remix to Chief Keef's classic song Love Sosa, a track titled Hate Sosa. And in the song, Dusky disses 600, rapping that he can't wait to catch D Rose and that he's going to knock over the bricks, a reference to their earlier name Brick City. Going into 2013, the members' efforts in the music scene would begin to pay off big time, and for a moment, it truly seemed that 600 could become the biggest thing in Chicago drill. But unfortunately, right as things were beginning to take off musically, the war in the streets would ultimately end up claiming the life of 600's most talented rap prospect.
Oh, cool. 600, bro. They could have been like something. LA Capone. If LA Capone was alive right now, dog. He was alive right now. Trust me. Hey, bro. Imagine if Autumn was alive, like the people that was here, you know, it's an LA Capone. If C-Day and Rhonda was out of jail, D-Rose not, and all the people that, like, crazy, man.
In 2012, Chicago drill music had exploded after Chief Keef, one of the BD-affiliated rappers hailing from both O Block and Front Street, released a string of hit songs. On March 6, 2012, Keef released his breakout track, I Don't Like, ultimately going on to land at 93 on the Billboard Hot 100 and getting an all-star remix from Kanye West and going double platinum. With this track, Keef put Chicago drill, essentially gangster rap 2.0, on the map, and for members of 600 who were allied with the BDs from O Block and Front Street, this windfall of attention represented a huge opportunity. 2013 would be the year 600 would begin to make serious noise in the Chicago drill scene. Members like E-Day, S-Dot, as well as Young Famous, and the rest of the Bezel Boys had all been dropping drill music consistently since 2011, while members like Buka, Rondo, and C-Day had dabbled with the genre also since 2011. In 2012, particularly E-Day had become the face of 600 in the music scene, even getting Chief Keef to feature on the remix of his song Gucci. With that coming right as Chief Keef was absolutely blowing up with his track I Don't Like. But at the end of 2012, another prominent 600 member would also begin rapping. That member was LA Capone, who together with his best friends like Rondo Number 9 and Tay 600 would take the hype around 600 to the next level coming into 2013. In January 2013, LA Capone would release his first hit and one of the most classic examples of Chicago drill in its prime, the song Murder. In the video, someone even holds up a sign with the names of a number of gangs that were seemingly allied in the streets and now in the music. O Block, where Chief Keef hails from, OTF, the name of Lil Durk from Lamron's collective, as well as Baldy World, another name for 600, and Front Street. This showed that LA Capone and 600 were getting support from all the local hoods with some of the biggest up-and-coming drill stars. So, LA would be in prime position to become the most famous rapper coming out of 600. The song Murder itself was a hard-as-nails drill anthem with a hook where LA...
And it's true that LA Capone was really like the next one up. Next one out of 600. I'm saying, but unfortunately, he lost his life in this Chicago, gang scene, man.
pretty much lists all of the minor indiscretions that could get you murdered in his hood. Murder painted a stark picture of the deadly lifestyle of a gang member in the streets of 600. And if LA's tweets were anything to go by, his lyrics rang true, as he would tweet in March that you have to commit a murder to be a true 600 member like him and all of the other members that he tagged. However, there's been intense debate about who it was LA might have murdered, with no particular body being identified after all of these years. But regardless, LA remained very active in music during this time, and it's clear to see he had ambition to be a star in drill. Just 6 days after he released Murder, LA released his track Face Down with Rondo No. 9. This will be another street anthem celebrating murder and the gang lifestyle. But unlike Murder, however, Face Down would see Rondo No. 9 making pointed disses towards 600's ops, 051 Young Money, and murdered Jaro City member Tutu. The pair would later become a dynamic duo in music, releasing many classic drill songs together. Next month, LA Capone released a posse cut featuring S-Dot and Rondo No. 9 called Grindin', another murder anthem with lyrics about 600 members being savages and scoring on their ops, leaving them dead. In March, LA would follow this up with the song So Loud, a departure from the murder anthems he dropped before, this time being a more melodic auto-tune track with a more uplifting style. LA was showing versatility on the mic that was rare in Chicago, that was mainly being showcased at the time by the biggest stars in drill, Chief Keef and Lil Durk. But during this period, LA's work rate was unmatched, because only a day later, he would drop the next music video for the song Shooters with Rondo No. 9, another gangbanging anthem.
The song was fire. That Shooter song was fire.
That saw Rondo shouting out the many shooters in 600. It was arguably shooters that would help make Rondo, with his distinctive raspy voice, a name to be reckoned with within the drill scene. In the track, he would diss members of 069 Brick Squad set, including P. Rico and Lil Jojo, who had started the so-called BDK movement the previous year, before tragically being killed soon after. On June the 10th, 2013, 600 would also drop their first official group anthem, the track 600, featuring E-Day, LA Capone, S-Dot, and Rondo No. 9, together with a music video that begins with a jail call message from D Rose, who was locked up at the time, and includes cameos from numerous 600 members, 600 Breezy, Huncho Hudo, Just Blow, Tay 600, Young Famous, and many more, as well as O-Block members like Boss Top and J Money, who would unfortunately end up losing his life later that year. Many fans of drill can at least attest to the waves that 600 were making this year and the influence their presence at this time would have had in rap for years to come, with many calling this period in 2013, where so many famous members were alive and releasing music, as the golden age of Chicago drill, with people reflecting on this period as 600's musical prime. For example, one of the most famous rappers of the late 2010s, 6ix9ine, went on record to say that Rondo No. 9 was actually the reason he started rapping.
Yo, you know what's crazy? Yeah. The person who made me start rapping was Rondo No. 9.
Nah.
I swear to God.
And it would be amid this hype that LA Capone and Rondo No. 9 would drop their biggest hit on July the 30th, 2013, uploading the video for their collaboration track Play for Keeps, which today has over 60 million views. This high-energy anthem has been named as one of the best Chicago drill songs of all time by many people. And it was this song that really cemented LA Capone as well as Rondo No. 9 as potential superstars of the Chicago drill scene, with the music video itself even featuring a cameo from...
They're both a good. LA Capone was like that, man. You know what I'm saying? LA Capone was like that, dog. Rondo was like that too. You know what I'm saying? It just sucks and it's just sad. LA Capone gone, Rondo in jail. See, they all got 40 years. So by the time they get out, niggas gonna forget about them, because everybody that grew up on Chicago drill, niggas probably all older, got kids now, mature now. You know what I'm saying?
From arguably the future biggest star to ever emerge from Chicago's drill scene, Lil Durk. Leading into September 2013, 600 had all the momentum in the now booming Chicago drill scene, and together with their serious street reputation, they now had numerous talented rappers. And for a relatively small set, they were clearly ahead of most of their Chicago contemporaries, scoring millions of streams with their songs. LA himself was seemingly destined for stardom and had the perfect opportunity to make it out of the streets and strike it big as an artist. However, unfortunately, one fateful night at a studio, everything would change. On the 26th of September 2013, LA Capone, together with his good friend and fellow rapper JB Bin Laden, who LA shouted out in his debut single Work, where he raps, "Dare someone try me, I'll be with a shooter, yeah that's Lil JB." Now these two were together at a recording studio on South Stony Island Avenue in the South Shore neighborhood. Eerily, just months prior, Wooski from STLEBT, an enemy of 600, had previously tweeted at LA warning him to be careful when he's with JB. Footage would later circulate from the studio showing LA's last moments, recording a song that would later become the track Brothers, a blockbuster collab with LA, Rondo Number 9 and Lil Durk. But just before 7 p.m, LA would end up exiting the studio from the rear, walking into an alleyway. Unbeknownst to him, waiting in that alleyway were two gunmen, who would open fire, hitting LA twice. LA Capone, real name Leonard Anderson, would be transported to the Northwestern Memorial Hospital in downtown Chicago, about half-hour drive from the studio, where he would ultimately be pronounced dead at 8:30 p.m. Tay 600 would later recall on his YouTube channel getting a call that night about what had happened. Tay would apparently call Lil Durk, who would go on to post a get well message to LA on Twitter 56 minutes after the shooting, and Tay and Durk would apparently head to the hospital together.
Damn. They thought he was going to be good and be alive, and you get that call that just say your friend unfortunately lost his life, man.
Unfortunately, when they arrived, they would be met by a doctor covered in blood who informed them that LA had unfortunately not survived the shooting.
The doctors come out. It's two detectives and it's a doctor. And the doctor, had so much blood. I can't remember if it was a boy or a girl doctor, but the doctor had so much blood, like, on they, you know what I'm saying? Like, on they, like, they work. Like, I'm like, damn. Dirk tapping, he like, one more. They coming out like they finna say folks dead or something. They ass tweaking. Whole time they was finna tell us he ain't make it, you know what I'm saying? I'm not even thinking about it at this time, but they about to let us know folks never made it.
It would be later reported that LA had actually been just minutes away from the University of Chicago's Trauma Center for Youths, but he was denied treatment as he had just turned 17. In an interview with 16 Shot and Visuals, JB Bin Laden would give it extra insight into the day that LA was killed. It would seem that LA was truly at the cusp of superstardom, as he had been telling JB that he was supposed to be meeting with Atlanta.
This motherfucker could have been alive if they would have gave him treatment, but he just turned 17. Man, what the fuck?
Legend T.I. very soon.
He kept telling me that he's supposed to be meeting T.I. So flying to Atlanta with Dirk and meeting T.I. and like that. This what he should be telling me, like for like around the time he telling me, like, man, I'm finna fly out, meet T.I. He was flying out at this point, like. He went on a couple shows with Dirk like around the time.
This would also be confirmed by LA's sister on an Instagram Live with Tay Capone.
Somebody said Dirk would have signed LA. Let me just set the record straight on that too. My brother wasn't no dummy. That's why he ain't let him just sign him. He had a whole record deal before he died. He was finna sign with T.I. and them. He would have never signed with Dirk for $100,000. What the f is that, a cop?
JB would also explain that witnessing LA's death was his first heartbreak and that he still suffers PTSD from it to this day.
That was like my real first like a heartbreak. I was really up behind that. Like PTSD, that's where like that shit come from for me. Like, you know, that shit happened so fast. And I was young, and it's like I said, my intuition was telling us not to go to the studio. So it's like we was wrong from the jump. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like all that shit was eating me up, all type of shit. Like, I couldn't even, you know what I'm saying?
You know, it's crazy that he said that. Sometimes your gut is telling you not to do that, and you gotta listen to your gut that's telling you, like, if you go into, like, say, go play hoop, right? And then it's like, in the back of your mind, they say, don't go. You know what I'm saying? You just gotta listen sometimes, but I'm telling you, bro, he just said the intuition said first not to go to the studio, but they still went and something happened. If they didn't go, maybe Ella can still be alive right now, you know what I'm saying?
600 members would be devastated by the loss of one of their most prominent and talented members. Rondo would pay tribute in an IG post and on Twitter. E-Day would tweet that LA's legacy would live forever, and many 600 members were seen wearing RIP LA Capone shirts in Rondo Number 9's new song Life of a Savage. Other people close to LA would also pay their respects, like Trey Savage from Chief Keef's Glow Gang, as well as Lil Durk himself, who along with Rondo would record a new verse for the song Brothers, the track LA was working on moments before his death, with that track releasing on Christmas 2013 as a tribute. According to police reports, LA's killing would at first seem like a hard case to solve, as there were no working security cameras and the area was mainly surrounded by abandoned buildings. There was also a few witnesses who had directly seen the events take place, other than LA's friend, who could only provide a limited description of the shooter's appearance. However, that didn't stop 600's many ops from dissing LA and celebrating in the aftermath of his death, including prominent rivals from STL like KI and FBG Duck, with guys like MOB Nut even implying that it was time for MOB to kill even more 600 members. Ultimately, little less than a year after LA's death, the detectives would suddenly have a breakthrough when a man known as Mickal Mays, better known in the streets as 051 Rocco or Rockhead, would tell them that he had witnessed the killing firsthand and that he knew the perpetrators personally. This initial interview, where Mays would implicate another 051 member called Lil Mick, real name Saki Hardy Johnson, and a man named Mako Buchanan, would put into motion a series of tell-all interviews by Johnson, Buchanan, and Mays, where each person would try and outmaneuver the others. In a subsequent interview, Mays would allege that Johnson had later bragged about shooting LA Capone in the face when both shots had in fact been in the lower body. Johnson, on the other hand, alleged that Mays may have been involved in the killing of a female 051 member called Big A, real name Amanda Fitch, who had actually been with the trio at the time of the killing of LA Capone. Johnson would also claim that it was Mays who told him that LA Capone was at the studio making a diss song about him, and that he had initially refused to go with the others when they told about their plans to kill LA until somebody brought up 600 being responsible for the murder of Fathead. He would finish his recollection of the events by stating that the killer had been either Mays or Buchanan, but Johnson hadn't actually witnessed the shooting, as he had simply waited for the others in the car. Buchanan would apparently begin his interview cautious and apprehensive, however a meal from McDonald's seemed to put him at ease, because Buchanan would then proceed to come up with not one, but two different scenarios about what had happened that night. In the first scenario, Buchanan claimed that he had heard rumors of the deceased woman named Fitch being responsible for the killing. However, it seems then that Buchanan may have later realized that this version of the events didn't seem believable to the detectives, as he would then come up with another version of the events where it was in fact Johnson who had pulled the trigger. But despite their efforts to cooperate, all three would eventually all be tied to and convicted of the murder. Johnson, aka
2017, they barely got him. 60 years.
Lil Mick was indeed determined to have been the shooter, and he would receive the longest sentence with a total of 60 years. However, in 2021, he would get a partial legal victory, as it was deemed that he would get a resentencing, likely shorter than the original 60 years. Buchanan, meanwhile, would end up getting a total of 45 years. He would also appeal, but that was denied. And Mays, who was the first to offer detectives information about the murder, would get the lightest sentence, but still being hit with a whopping 24 years. And after the trio had been caught, Reddit users on Chiracology actually found social media posts of Johnson, aka Lil Mick, getting his dreads cut around the time of the murder. Apparently a common move in the aftermath of the shooting to get rid of any gunpowder residue out of the long hair and to change their image to throw off the police. Lil Mick could also be seen on Twitter the day after the murder, taunting 600 and LA Capone, and claiming that 600 needed a new name for their block, such as LA World, similar to other neighborhoods when a fallen member dies. Driller from 051, on the other hand, would tweet what LA's last words had supposedly been. No. Commenters on Reddit argued that it would have been very likely that the trio would have gotten away with the murder had it not been for Mays, aka Rocco's cooperation. Interestingly, before the arrest for the firearm in 2014, which led Rocco to cooperate, he was a top-ranking member from 051 and allegedly had been involved in 3 murders, being seen as 051's top killer at the time, as well as being noted as a top 10 shooter by the Chicago police, with commenters alleging that he may well have been the murderer of both LA Capone and OTF Newski, Dirk's cousin. Rocco had been taunting LA online the very next week, throwing up LA hand signs. He also posted a slew of disrespectful tweets regarding LA's murder.
What would happen if Newski was alive too to this day? Like, damn, bro.
The online detectives on Reddit's Chiracology have also seemingly solved who made the original call, giving up LA's location and setting him up. This would allegedly be another rapper by the name of Hard Knock, who is affiliated with the 757 Gang Alliance in the low end, who on the other hand were at the time heavily affiliated with 051. According to this long and elaborate theory that appears very well sourced, Hard Knock was at the studio at the same time as LA and JB, and he would end up calling Rockhead to come to the studio to smoke some dope with them, which would in reality end up being a setup to kill LA. LA Capone's death was a huge loss, not only to 600, but to the whole drill scene. His music career had seemingly been on a steep rise in 2013, and many were expecting him to be the next big rap superstar to blow up from Chicago. LA Capone's rap career still had a massive impact on the world and left a big legacy to be remembered. New York drill legend Pop Smoke would tweet in 2014 that LA Capone was his favorite rapper, likely inspiring the future Brooklyn drill star to start rapping himself. In his short-lived career, LA Capone created many hit songs that would become classics in the Chicago drill scene, with 600 Breezy believing that at just age 17, LA would likely have been the biggest artist from Chicago if he remained alive. He even had his own connections with massive future stars such as G Herbo, as LA actually went to school with him, something that G Herbo later shared in a tribute post to LA on Instagram.
Hey, shout out Lil Herb too, I got some new
couple soon too.
Yeah.
Featuring on her, man. And
Charlotte, her, L&B, Lil Bibby, man.
Ultimately, the story of L.A. Capone went down as one of the most tragic wastes of talent in Chicago history. The aspiring rap rookie could truly have been one of the greats, but ultimately, it was his ties to the streets of 600 that both inspired his music as well as inspired his enemies to take him out. And unfortunately for 600, L.A. Capone's murder was only the first of many disappointing setbacks that ultimately proved that no matter how much talent you have, if you make one wrong move in the streets of Chicago, everything could be over in an instant. But for other members, it would ultimately wind up that being on the...
That is true, though. That's what if mystery. I think L.A. Capone was really next up, though. Was really next up, yo. Really next up. Most of the people that died, they're really some good artists, too, but the street life, bro.
The other side of the gun would be the misstep that led to their downfall. And going into 2014, numerous 600 members with potentially bright futures would slip up and crash out, throwing away the opportunities that they had to finally get out of the street life, ultimately winding up facing decades in prison. After the death of L.A. Capone, 600 members would be devastated, but ultimately nothing would stop the gang's activities in the streets. While the murders they were committing were grabbing headlines, the music they were releasing was racking up YouTube views, and soon members would wind up getting more attention than they bargained for. Rondo No. 9 had gained a reputation as a violent loose cannon off the back of his drill songs with L.A. Capone. He'd also collaborated with Lil Durk and DJ Victorious on the track We Don't F Around, a song which featured Rondo and Durk referencing the loyalties between their crews OTF, 600, O-Block, and 300. Rondo had also dropped one of his biggest hits, a remix to the P. Rico song Hang With Me, which was notable for its extensive disses aimed at Tuka, the 15-year-old GD who was killed in 2011, as well as shouting out infamous O-Block shooter T. Roy and claiming that they go on drills together. Rondo was picking up steam in the rap game, and he went on to release a string of anthems after LA's murder, in many ways picking up the torch of 600's most buzzing rapper from his fallen friend. One infamous track was the disturbingly titled song Taliban, where he appeared to compare his gang activity on the streets to that of the major terrorist organization. Released on October the 7th, 2013, the song would also include pointed disses at dead ops like Fathead, and the video featured menacing scenes where 600 members would dance around with an array of high-powered weapons, including one particularly terrifying MAC-10 submachine gun. This gun would feature prominently in many videos and pictures associated with 600 members, and it became infamous amongst fans, being referred to as the 600 Mac. This would eventually cause fans to make compilations of all the times this infamous gun was actually present in 600's music videos and social media posts. Tay Capone would mention the Mac in a live stream where he claimed that he got the gun in 2012 and that people were still showing it off in 2017 when he got out of jail, and claiming that the gang had put in maximum work on their ops with this gun.
Man,
That's crazy. That is crazy, y'all. That's crazy. That's insane. If we really think about it,
shouldn't work now. That got dropped off to me in my hands, and all of that was in 2012 or 13, and I seen four of them still toting that 2017 when I got out the joint. Some guns you gotta just let go, bro, especially when we already had put in a maximum amount of work with that.
Things like this were making 600 infamous, and the hype would continue as Rondo and other members would continue to release high-profile songs, like his November the 26th collab with Lil Durk, Ride. However, at the end of 2013, it would be more than music that had Rondo's face going viral in Chicago, as in December 2013, Rondo would post a photo on his Instagram that would become one of the most legendary images in Chicago drill history. In the photo, Rondo can be seen holding up an anti-tank rocket launcher, or as fans would refer to it, an RPG, rocket-propelled grenade launcher. This is like a weapon straight out of Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, and something a lot more at home in a real war zone like Iraq or Afghanistan, with something like this truly making sense of the fact why they call Chicago Chirac. The photo itself would go viral on social media, reinforcing the image of 600 members as real savages who practiced what they preached and really waged war in the streets. However, it also caused a major alert for the local police department, and an investigation would be carried out immediately after, as a literal wanted poster would circulate among Chicago police gang units, explaining that they believed that rocket launchers were actually circulating among Chicago gang members, posing a genuine danger to the public, with pictures of the weapon and Rondo's own mugshot displayed prominently in a wanted style poster that went around. In the aftermath of this,
that's how you know they were scared. But when they kill each other with guns and other stuff, police don't care. But so they saw the RPG, then they wanted
This
man, they
incident,
pick
the
and
photo
choose,
itself
bro.
was swiftly
They
removed
pick
from
and
Rondo's
choose.
Instagram, but by then it was too late. And while the image was going viral, Rondo would tweet an angry message where he would deny the weapon or the photo was even real. But luckily for Rondo, it would appear that the investigation was closed with no leads or arrests regarding that specific weapon. But later in an unreleased snippet from his Instagram, Rondo would even mention that his house was actually searched or visited by federal investigators following this incident. And the next year, Rondo would reference the situation in his song Trust Myself, where he claimed that the incident actually brought him a lot of publicity. This would become an infamous moment in Chicago drill, with many viral videos being made about the situation, garnering millions of views. Years later, Mimo600 would pay homage to Rondo, posing with an RPG in a gun store himself. And media antics such as these not only contributed to the image of 600 as one of the most savage sets in Chicago, but it also enforced the image of Chicago as a real war zone. Coming into the turn of the year, the hype around the Chicago drill scene was reaching its peak, and at the time, the term Chirac was being used heavily in the media, as the media was creating narratives about the violent death toll in Chicago being higher than the amount of US soldier deaths in the military conflicts in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. However, in fairness, as many news outlets would also point out, such hyperbolic headlines were actually largely distorting the reality on the ground. The point that they were making was that Chicago was in fact only the deadliest city in America in total homicides, but in per capita terms, it didn't even make the top 10 most violent cities. Therefore, the implication appeared to be that the violence in Chicago was slightly overblown if you were looking at it on a per capita basis. But that just goes to show you how powerful the antics of drill rappers were during this time. The symbolic shock of seeing a drill rapper toting an RPG straight out of the US military arsenal was hard to ignore, and it
Oh yeah, that's it for part 4. Be back for part 5. Yeah.